Welcome to Get After It with Nashy, brought to you by Ace Property Management and Sales.
Thanks for joining me. I think we've been planning this for a wee while, but you've clearly been busy. You've had a bit of a busy schedule, and you've been all over the place. So thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. It's good to finally meet virtually as we do these days.
Yeah, no problem. No, thanks for having me on. I'm sorry it's taken so long for us to kind of catch up, really. It's been one of those things that I have so many calls all the time, and it gets a little bit bogged down. I'm like, you know what? I'm a runner and I need to be outside more, so I try and do everything outside now.
Yeah, quite right. And what my first question, and the first thing I want to know is, how's the body? Because what you put yourself through, and reading even the post that you put up on Instagram when you'd completed Run Britain of the injuries that you'd gone through in 128 days. How are you?
Yeah, I was ruined. I was absolutely gone. I think from day 6 of the journey on, my body just started to get worse. And, I never expected to be on top of everything, but I expected to feel a bit better than I did in terms of energy, bones. I felt like I was just a skeleton at the end, and that feeling is really not very pleasant when you can feel the kind of the undersides of your feet, like your bones in your feet just touching the tarmac, and that's all you can feel, and it's the most horrible feeling. So that kind of stuff was brutal. But now, we're a few weeks after, and I'm on the mend, put it that way. I'm just trying to take in some food and put some kind of anything, fat, muscle, doesn't matter, just something on my bones.
Is that something you've experienced before in your other events and endurance challenges, that quite early on your body starts shutting down, but then your body maybe begins to realize this is what I'm going to be doing for the next wee while, and it starts to make its own adjustments?
Well, no, it isn't actually. I mean, not in the same way, not in the same extremes, because obviously what I've just done, it was so much more physically demanding than anything I've done or probably will do. And therefore the body it was an absolute onslaught without any let up for 4 months or so. It was harder, physically harder by, thousands fold. It was very, very difficult on my body. And I suppose the answer to that is, do I train into a trip? Do I try and actually increase the miles? But the last thing you want to do when you're about to run for 4 months for 12 hours a day every day is to go and do more of it before. And although I did do training, I made a distinct decision not to train into it. And perhaps if I did, then maybe I would have suffered for longer, or maybe I would have suffered less. So, who knows?
I've heard that before, that you don't want to overtrain, certainly, but you're actually building up your endurance during the event, because you've got so far to go. You're probably going to hit somewhere that's a wee bit comfortable. But I mean, the pain, like torn Achilles, broken bones, but we're talking serious injuries that would put most folk, it would probably make them reconsider running another marathon tomorrow or in a couple of days. How did you get through those things?
Well, it's kind of my only job is to keep going, and so I just had to keep going. That's the reality. Is like, if everybody else is managing to hold up their end of the deal, sponsors doing their thing, my team doing their thing, the van not breaking down, my crew feeding me. There's so many different bits, but my bit was just to put one foot in front of the other for 100,000 times a day, roughly, every day until we got to the end. And so I didn't have any moments where I was thinking about wanting to quit. There was a lot of me at the beginning that felt like, let's have something catastrophic where I physically can't move to stop me, but even with broken bones you can still carry on. And so I just kept plodding on.
That's interesting that your mind took you to that dark place of something catastrophic could stop this. How far did you take that? Were you thinking, a car hits me, I'm out of this, that might be easy? I mean, where did you go?
Well, I've had cars hit me before, and I still didn't take me out of it. So that wouldn't have hit the button, unfortunately. But no, I think my mind went to, certainly in the first week, it was very dark because I didn't want to die. I didn't want to have something like that. But I thought, you know what, if I have an issue where I physically can't move, like I can't actually get out of bed and run, then I can't run. And that would be like, I would be let off the hook. But I know that I can get through minor broken bones and lots of torn muscles and things like that. So I knew I was kidding myself. And so therefore, I never actually really wanted to stop, if that makes sense. I just thought if something happened where I couldn't, then happy days. Do you know what I mean? It was a dark place to be, but I think everybody in truth goes through that at one point or another. I just didn't want to kind of feel like that in the first week, but I did.
And that's telling me that your mind is stronger than your body, because your body could give up. And again, I hear this a lot, but you're just living proof of it, that with broken bones and torn Achilles, your mind's not quitting. It's trying to. One side's saying, give it up, really hurt yourself, Nick, give yourself an excuse, but you're able to overcome that.
Yeah, that's so true. And my mind is stronger than my body is something that I've been thinking about and talking a lot about, actually, because I thought my mind was strong before, but I didn't realize quite how strong until this trip, because there were, and I'm not exaggerating here, there's probably, I'd say 3.5 weeks solid during the middle of the phase, where this was after broken bones, where I was crying on a daily basis out of pain, not out of, oh, I don't want to do this, like I want my mummy take me home. It was, I am in so much pain that tears are coming. And that was every day for nearly a month. And I carried on. And so I feel really pleased with myself that happened. But on the other hand, I'm royally fed up with my body not being able to keep up with my mind. And so I'm actively trying to strengthen myself now and having lots of conversations with lots of experts. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation about, what I'm going to be trying to do to improve myself, because I'm not going to set out on another mission until I've fixed my weaknesses. I had broken bones and torn muscles in Italy. I had broken bones when I did Run Britain. I had lots of torn muscles when I was doing Running the World. I've had them in big races. And so now's the time to get myself to a physically better place, because I know my mind is there now. I feel like that was the ultimate test. And so in all honesty, it's actually quite a positive thing. But at the time, it didn't feel like it.
That sounds to me like you're just getting started, that you've kind of set a base level, you've done some stuff, you've run the world, you've done some incredible endurance events. Let's reset, let's rebuild, let's get ready. And that's extremely exciting for me to hear, let alone the way you live your life. Now, as you say, running is your life, that is your job. And you create money for charities, and I want to hear about the 196 charity and all that, the bits and pieces you're involved in that you set up. But what is it like? You made the jump from corporate to the life you live now, and I want to know about van life. I want to know about living with Poppy and everything that's going on. How do you describe your life to people? Because there's so many people that are in a life that they hate, or they do a job that they can't stand turning up to. And you do something, or you build towards something, you have goals that change people's lives, but your life is, you've got to a place that you're happy. You do something every day that you enjoy.
Yes. And not that I just enjoy it, but because some days, you have to work hard, you have to sit on emails for a day. But I've got myself to a point that no matter how hard I work, or no matter how bad the day is, I'm still content with what I'm doing, which is fundamentally very crucial to trying to make that step. And if you reverse engineer stuff, if you stop trying to think about, attitude, and I talk about this when I'm talking corporates or in schools and stuff, is if you reverse engineer the way you look at your own life and how people perceive you, as everybody knows, you've got the kind of self, which is the version of you that you think people see, and then you've got the version of you that people actually see, and then you've got the version of you that you think people see. And so there's different things there. And so I've realized that I wanted to strip out the stuff that I didn't enjoy. I didn't want to sit indoors and do stuff, hence I'm outdoors now. I wanted to be around friends and family more. I wanted to tick off some of those boxes, and it comes back to our earlier conversation of Kevin and he inspiring me to go and change my life. But talking about the corporate world, if you take one of those suppose, what's the word, mechanisms of working. So if you do what we call a negative brainstorm, so if you were trying to create the ultimate car, you would say, how do I create the worst car in the world? And then you write them all down, and then you flip them around and find that out. And so for me, I actively did that with my own life and said, now I've done running the world, right, do I want to concentrate on this? Do I want to concentrate on this? And I said, right, I don't want to make money a focus of what I'm doing. I want to make sure that I'm calmer in myself. And that's all come from, I am stressed. I'm chasing the next paycheck. And I think everybody goes through these things. So if you can take that out, I am now content making sure that the odd tiny bills that I do have are paid. And trying to answer the questions when people say, where do you live? That's my hardest part of the day. That's not too bad, just because we live in a van, we're all over the place, and we have the freedom. And I really wish that so many other people out there in the world have the courage to do that. And there is no formula. You ultimately just have to go, right, I'm doing it now. And I think a lot of people also say, well, the time isn't quite right. That I can't do it quite now. Once this happens, or when I'm older, or when I retire, or all those kind of things, it's not, you need to decide immediately and then make the change, and then all of a sudden you're in this world of you having to make it work, and then that's when the good stuff comes. Look where I'm sitting out right next to the beach, in the sea this morning, up at 5 walking the dog, been on a few emails, been to the gym, swam in the pool. And I don't know what time it is. It's now not even midday. And so I've got the rest of the day to train and plan and stuff like that. So I feel very fortunate, but I also feel that I'm happy that I've made that choice, because it's very easy to chase the money. My attitude at the moment is, how much money do I need next month, next year to achieve what I want to achieve? And sometimes that answer is, well, I need £1 million to run around the world. So you go and find that, and then you make that happen. Or you go, I need a van to be able to support this, and then you make that happen, rather than looking at life in a very boxed off way where everybody's conforming to, right, I need to go to school and then get some qualifications in order to go to university, and then get more qualifications in order to get a job, in order to get a job that pays me more, and maybe I get a company car, and then I can then maybe have a house, and then and there's so many, thousands of people that go through that,
millions of people,
yeah, exactly,
to the point of billions probably around the world, that it's scary to is as you describe it, it's scary for people to look at that and think, oh, how do I get a pension? How do I look at the future? What if the kids need to go on a big school trip and we're the only family that can't afford it? These are the things, that the real life scenarios that people have to deal with. But I don't know, it sounds like a good place to start is by getting organized, decluttering, sorting out the bits and pieces, finding out what you spend, finding out what you don't need to spend, find out the extras that you can live without, and actually having a real good look at what you've achieved so far, what you actually need to live, and can you make some changes that will vastly improve your life, and to a point where you live a life that you actually enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in everybody's grasp. And I talk about the freedom and opportunity of the Western world a lot, whereby everybody that's listening to this is one of the luckiest people alive, basically, because we have so much stuff at our fingertips. We have water running out of the tap, we have a fridge, we have all of those elements to the world, and we take stuff for granted. And so I feel like not only have we got the freedom and opportunity to make those changes, generally speaking, whether it's big or small, whether it's just to spend more time with your family, whether it's just to not have to sit in a car and commute, maybe cycle to work. This can be small things, or you can make big changes. But I almost go the step further and say it's not just our our opportunity, but it's also our responsibility, because there's so many people out in the world that don't have that chance to make that change, that slight little change that can change everything. And I'm fortunate, I've got a lot of good friends who live in vans and all over the world, and they're kind of free-spirited people. And I think you can sometimes forget that comes from a very you have to make that decision yourself. These free-spirited people that you see, and you maybe get kind of hippie or a vanny or whatever, but those people have made an active choice, which I kind of celebrate, because so many people around the world go, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do that? And they don't act. And so at least try. And the worst case is you can go back. That's how I feel. You know, if all goes wrong, maybe my legs don't work and I can't run, and my voice goes and I can't speak, and my hand doesn't work and I can't write, I'll go back to work. But I hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah. I mean, but it's listening to you've been to some you've seen poverty when you've been around the world. You've actually been to these countries. You've been in every single country in the world and run a marathon, and you've run through war zones. You run through dangerous situations where people, like you say, will never get that chance.
No,
they've been born into problems. Can I ask you about one place that intrigues me? Is North Korea. What was your experience like there? How deep into the country were you allowed? Did you get? And did you see? I mean, I listened to a podcast recently where a woman that escaped North Korea. She was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard it.
Yeah.
She talked about dead bodies on the street and children chasing rats to eat. What did you see when you were there?
Yeah. So we were in Pyongyang. We were in the capital. We were tourists. I ran in April. It was very cold. Actually snowed at the end of the marathon. It was the official Pyongyang marathon. Now, there's a lot of question marks over when you visit North Korea. Do you see the real North Korea or not? And hearing stories that you've just referred to, I think I saw the real North Korea, but not wholly. It's as if you go to a picturesque postcard like where I am now of a beautiful beach, or you know, you always come over and see London, and that's Britain to people. Yeah. But the reality is there's so many other elements, and so, you know, thousands of places around the world, and most of the cities, in fact, Western world included, that I went to around the world, you see a snapshot of the city, not of the country. And so I think North Korea was not scary in the slightest. That's first of all. You know, I didn't fear for my life. I didn't fear for being locked up. We were very heavily controlled in where we were going. You can't just roam around the city. You have a guide or two with you, and there's unclothed, ununiformed military that kind of keep an eye on what's going on, and that's very overt. It's not, you know, they're not trying to spy on you. They're there just to make sure that you're not damaging a statue, or that you're not discussing things you shouldn't be discussing. So you get to see a bit of the real North Korea in that aspect. But the stuff that they can't not show you is the architecture, is the cleanliness, is the infrastructure in terms of the internet or the trains or the rivers. How clean are they? All that sort of stuff. And it was incredibly eye-opening that North Korea was very neat. It was very tidily, incredibly orderly down in the subways. You know, everybody was standing silently in single file queues, which, you know, puts the tube to shame. And everything was spotless, and obviously no American products, so no chewing gum. So no chewing gum lining the streets. It was almost like we just got plonked in a Lego city, and we were experiencing a tour of this new world, which was uplifting in some ways and incredibly sad and tragic in others, because you knew that everybody there, doesn't have the opportunity to leave, most likely, or doesn't even have the concept of what the other option is. I went and talked in a school, actually, which was very rare to do, and we managed to make that work. And I was kind of forbidden for asking lots of questions that I wanted to ask to these students, because in many ways they were obviously looking after their own benefits, but in hindsight it was wise not to ask questions, because you're opening them up to wondering and thinking about stuff that is unattainable to them. So it was absolutely fascinating, and I learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah, and like kids in schools that you met, had they seen a white man traveling? Did they understand that you're running a marathon?
No.
Were they in awe of you, or where have you come from?
No, they were. I would say they were just on their best behavior. I think the only thing that I saw in their eyes, other than some sadness, was I must behave now, which in itself is very sad, because they obviously had the eyes of not just their teachers, but military officers who were accompanying us, and I was actually speaking to an English class, and they were showing off some of their English, and it was fantastic. But we don't know if that's really what we got to see. It was very militant in the schools in the sense of the uniforms, and it wasn't a fun place to be. It wasn't a happy, joyful, soulful country, which I suppose is stating the obvious, but to see it firsthand was quite shocking. And I've got some fantastic photos. We've got the photography book coming out quite soon, actually, alongside the Running the World book. And it's the photos is so stark in contrast. You've got a beautiful, bright skyscape of the city, multicolored buildings, and then you have dark and dingy and incredibly clean subways. I would recommend anybody to go there because it's such an eye-opener and a realization of how even North Korea is close to, in many ways, the Western world. They have infrastructure, they have food, they look after their people in many respects, I believe, and yet it's still so far away from what we know.
It's incredible when you listen to that girl on the Joe Rogan podcast. Since I listened to that show, I've done no research on North Korea, but I now think what she explained is what is going on right now.
Yeah.
And then talking to you, who's traveled the world and been there, that might go on. You didn't see it. You could go there safely. You will see police patrol, army patrol. They do have internet. They do have lighting. They do have food. And you can go and experience it. It's incredible that you got to do the research. You got to speak to people and not just take someone's point of view. Now that lady's obviously been through hell and back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her story, and that's her story. And she got out, and she's now in the States. But you telling your story is so important because
I think everybody's got a story though. Whether you do go to North Korea or not.
Anywhere I could name another country that this is what I think it's like, and you say I've been there. Well, you obviously you've been everywhere, but you've been there, and this is what I experienced. I don't know if you remember. I jumped on a Zoom conference call you were doing with Mark Beaumont during the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
And I was straight in with some questions for you, and I'm going to ask it again. I'd like to know about the big cat experiences and where you were and where you saw, was it lions? Was it tigers? What did you come across and where were you?
Yeah. So big cats, saw a lot of big cats, some very scary, one in particular, which I think you might be referring to in Namibia. That was a cheetah. So the story goes, I had a day off in Namibia. So I was doing, three countries, 3 marathons every week, dotting from one to the other. But occasionally you get a little bit of time before a flight, or you run early in the morning, then you have the afternoon off, mostly sleeping or eating. But in this instance, I thought there's an amazing opportunity to see cheetahs in the area. Everybody was talking about it. And I managed to convince the receptionist to find me a guide. Now the guide was, in the nicest possible way, just a bit dodgy. I didn't really know if he was going to take me to see cheetahs and what we were doing, but he kind of got out the car and we drove for miles and miles and miles, hours from the hotel. I was thinking, am I going to get back in time? And we drove out into the middle of nowhere, and he had a gun over his shoulder for protection, and he said to me, "Oh, just watch out for snakes, because there's lots of snakes around." And at that point, I thought, I think I've been a bit conned here. We're not going to see any cheetahs. I'm just going to see snakes, and I'm probably going to put myself in more danger. I didn't think anything of it. I went one way, he went the next, and he said, if you see a cheetah, shout. Ultimately, words to that effect of, if you see a cheetah, let me know. And I was convinced then that we were not going to see a cheetah because he was going off in another direction and he had the gun and I didn't. And then shortly after, 20 minutes or so, I heard a rustling in the bush off to my right, and lo and behold, incredibly close. I'm talking less than. Did I show you the video last time, Nashy? Did I show you the video when I was on that call? Sure. Because it's 6 feet away, no more, no further away than that. And this cheetah was crouching down, and I froze, and I thought, right, well, this is it. I'm out on my own.
Not that fast.
I know exactly. I can't run that fast. I can't shout. What do I do? And eventually, I got my phone out and filmed it because I thought, right, if I'm going to die, then at least it will get it on camera and people will know what happened. But the cheetah just crouched down, walked towards me, and literally brushed right past my leg as if I wasn't there. Sniffed a bit, ran on, and I couldn't believe it. The wild cheetah right next to me, the most stunning animal. And I was just completely powerless. So yeah, I've had a big respect for cats since then.
And see, like, on how big, how tall, this is just things that interest me. It's probably a stupid question. I've seen cats and I've seen things like this, but was it up to your hips? I mean, how big are we talking? I mean, if it wanted,
I would say
obviously it would have had you. Thigh height.
Oh yeah, it could have had me if it was only ankle high, I think, because cheetahs are pretty fierce. Yeah, it was up to my middle of my thigh. But obviously they crouch down and then they kind of stand tall if they want to look over the grass and stuff. So she was tall. She was probably not that old. And when I got back to the guide, he didn't believe me. I said,
I was going to say that you obviously didn't shout. You didn't shout. Did you freeze and
I couldn't shout. No, I didn't want to scare the cheetah. I didn't want to cause any problem of, stupid British, Westerner shouts and gets eaten by cheetah. I thought, I'm just going to stay quiet and hope for the best. The guy didn't believe me, and I had to show him the video before he believed that. And all he said was I was lucky, and I think he meant I was lucky to see a cheetah as opposed to lucky to be alive. I later found out that cheetahs aren't particularly interested in eating people unless they're very, very hungry. Unfortunately, I think she was probably already fed, so lucky me.
I know you've been in some countries with extreme heat. Where have you been, obviously, that's been the coldest? Where has freezing conditions bothered you or been a real issue when you've been running?
So, well, the coldest place was country number, I'm just going to put my laptop there, country number 1 of all places, which was in Canada, Toronto. It was supposed to be about -10, but when I got there, it was -25 degrees C. Incredibly cold. I had to borrow clothes. Literally, I was so, it's my first country. I arrived after planning the journey for 2 years, and I got there and I couldn't believe it. I had to borrow gloves and extra extra layers. I had 3 or 4 layers on my legs alone because it's so cold. And even when you're running, you sweat, and therefore, that then gets cold as well. So that was brutal. There was plenty of other cold and snowy places, like the Ukraine and that part of the world when I was there. But Canada and Toronto was just it scared the life out of me because I thought, this is country number 1. I've got another 195 to do. What on earth am I doing? I'm so underprepared. But fortunately, got through that. And then very soon afterwards, I was in Central and South America and everything got very hot. So.
Got hot. And you've had some, I know a lot of your story from listening to you on other podcasts and things like that, but you can go into these stories. I know you've told them a lot, but from being a drug mule, from being mugged at knife point. Well, what was that like, that experience? I know you were mugged a couple of times, but anything at knife point must have been terrifying. Yeah.
So the mugging incident is in Nigeria, in Lagos. That was the big one with the knife to my throat and guns being wielded. It was kind of an out of body experience, really, because I was so scared that I couldn't run away. I always convinced myself, if you get into a scuffle, I'm a runner, and just run away. Like, just you hide, run away, do something. I'm literally not a fighter in any way. I cannot do that. And so I was just going to run away. But in this place, it was in the center of Lagos market, incredibly built up, basically a metropolis of maze, back alleys, mud. It was just, you can't run anywhere. And you're tripping over goats, tripping over chickens, you've got kids running around, you've got bits of metal sticking out the ground at odd angles. It's such a mess in there. An incredible sight, biggest open air market in the world. And I got into a situation where these chaps rather aggressively started to kind of try and take my camera away from me and cornered me, and then it kind of got a bit more heated. Then the weapons were shown, kind of shoved to the floor, kind of kicked in the ribs. And I had a few people with me that were looking after me, kind of supposed to be keeping me safe. I was actually linked arm in arm with two different people as I was walking through the market, specifically for the reason of not getting, we were worried about kidnap more than anything, because kidnap's quite high there. Just, not serious kidnap. Well, if I suppose all kidnap serious, but in the sense that they would say, just give us all your money and we'll let you go, that kind of thing. And I didn't want that to happen. And then ultimately they were trying to get my camera off me, and we gave everything that we had money wise, and they managed to talk them down. But what was incredibly scary in that moment was that there was armed police very close by, watching this happen, and they did nothing. It was almost like definitely like they were saying, well, as long as you don't kill him, then anything goes. And I've later learned that it was kind of just the Lagos way for Westerners. People are so desperate that they just took their opportunity.
Terrifying. I mean, it's brave of you, I say, to go into all these locations and take it on. But was there any times with logistics or visas or issues that challenge might not have happened? Or was it, you don't quit, I know you don't, broken bones, nothing stopping you, but how hard did that get going around the world?
That got as hard as anything else. The logistics was by far the most difficult thing that I've had to overcome in my life. In terms of a big project, in terms of a big goal, the logistics was very, very difficult. Everything, it took 2 years to plan, and that shows you how logistically challenging it was. But as soon as I'm away running around the world, I then have to relinquish control to my team, to my parents, to my friends, to my family, to make things happen. And we got through 9 passports, 120 odd visas. We were trying to make sure that I didn't have a particular stamp in a particular passport when I was entering a particular country. So we had to make sure the order of the countries was correct. There was times when flights were cancelled, and therefore I had to go to a different country. And if I got there, would I be allowed in? Because my visa was either not quite ready or it was expired by a day or two. There was multiple flights that would then screw up the rest of the onward journey. We had 455 flights, all carbon offset, by the way, should put that in there. And logistically, it was virtually impossible. I mean, it would be now because of COVID, you just wouldn't be able to do it. But even back then, there was so many. If you were trying to do it slowly, if you were just hopping for the rest of your life from country to country, there's no real problem, because you just work out a way slowly to get there. Or you get you can sit on a nice sailing boat and go from island to island if you want in the Pacific Islands. But when you're trying to hop from one to the other day after day, and there's only one plane every 2 weeks, then it's difficult. So we had lots of challenges.
It's one thing, and you tell us, or you've been around 196 countries. I didn't know there was 196 countries. Was there countries obviously that you'd never heard of? The research that went in, you think, oh God, there's another one, or is there a reference point that Google obviously can probably set you up with a good starting point? But how did you even discover places you'd never heard of?
There's plenty of countries that I had never heard of. 40 maybe, like a lot of countries that I'd never heard of. And a lot of cities that I still struggle to pronounce. Loads of places. In terms of a reference of the number, so the magic number is anywhere between 193 and 195 or 96, and we went with 196 because obviously it's to make sure that we're definitely doing everything. But that also included the countries that were on some lists and weren't on others. So things like Taiwan, things like Kosovo, that kind of thing. And we also did Hong Kong and Beijing, even though they're both China, just trying to future-proof the record as well. So although I did 196 official countries, so that's the UN recognized sovereign states, there's 193 or 194 or 195 of them, or if you push it a little bit more, 196. So we did the 196, plus I then did a few extra marathons because I did the world majors, and we also did things like Hong Kong and Beijing to make sure that we were future-proofing the record.
Yeah, it's a serious amount of miles and an impressive adventure. But you're obviously running this. How does the book come into it? Are you writing blogs as you go? Are you taking notes? Are you using just pure memory? There's a lot to take in. How are you planning, and how have you taken to becoming an author?
Yeah, good question. Definitely not memory. If you asked me to name all the countries in the world, I'd probably get to about 10. No, that's not true. Probably get to about 20, and then I'd struggle, even though I've been to all of them. So yeah, and the memory's not good. Photos, diaries, dictaphone, so actually dictating. You mentioned Mark; he put me onto that to kind of, record my thoughts as I was running. That was a great idea. And then went through the book. And I was writing what came to me. I was writing from my diary notes. I was writing from photos, from looking at videos, and occasionally writing about the moments, actually what happened, describing people, describing places. And other times you're talking about your feelings, your emotions, your philosophy, and trying to paint a picture of the place, the people, and also you and what you're going through. So I really loved it. And I was surprised. I was always heavily dyslexic in school, and I was actually quite surprised that I could write to a point that I was happy with. I thought I was going to find it very frustrating, but I didn't. I loved it, and I'm writing 2 other books now. So again, it's another reason to go after what you want to do, because it opened me up to a whole other avenue of writing, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And sometimes now I'll put running to the back burner for the day, and I'll go and write. So it's brilliant. Yeah, I'm very grateful.
What was the first, when you went out to sponsors or a book publisher and said, look, I'm going to run a marathon in every country in the world? Did everyone say, let's do it, what do you need? Or was there a bit of like, nah, we're not interested? And the reason I asked, because I interviewed James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, who's famous for his triathlons and Ironman and everything he does. And when they did the 50-50-50 across America, he had no sponsorship, he had no book deals, no Netflix, no nothing, because everyone said, you can't do that, you'll fail. Did you get a bit of that? Did you get the resistance, or was it like
you get a lot of that from sponsors? And I actually don't think it is, we don't believe it, you'll fail. Most people don't really comprehend what it is, and it's the same with James and lots of other people, and also brands, businesses, companies, organizations, whatever you want to call them, aren't really set up. You don't start your business to become a sponsor. And so often businesses, even big businesses, have to kind of pivot to fully understand the benefit they would have. And ultimately, I think sponsors come on board to help a project, not for the returns, even though returns are built into the contract. They come on board because they want to be involved ultimately. And if you don't understand what you're involved in, then you're not going to want to do it. And I think that's absolutely true for Running the World, absolutely true for Iron Cowboy for sure. And for the stuff that we're planning in the future, you have to be able to articulate what you're doing, why it's significant, and what the impacts will be on a kind of a social level with the people that are going to be viewing this. In terms of the book, though, I had a virtually a free pass, because, mentioning Mark again, he introduced me to somebody at Penguin, and Penguin said, write us a sample. I wrote a sample, and they said yes, within a matter of days. So and that was, I think, a year before I left. So I knew the book was going to happen. And then there was a lot of effort. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of effort to finally get the book out, because it goes through multiple editing processes and stuff. But yeah, I was lucky with that. But sponsors are hard, because you want to have people that you like to work with, and that they want to work with you, and that they can support you in the way that is going to be adequate. There's no point accepting 50 quid if you need 100 grand, because they'll be disappointed. You won't be able to deliver what you're trying to deliver, and the whole thing will be not worth it. And so there's a bit of a balance to be had there.
The way you live your life now, and we touched on the van life at the start, but tell me a bit more about that. Do you see yourself, or is the future hold a home? Does it hold you maybe don't look that far ahead, or you're not looking to discuss that, but the way you are just now, do you see it going on and on and on? Do you see yourself maybe moving abroad and taking on different challenges and living a different lifestyle somewhere else?
I think the easiest way to answer that is just to say yes. There's so many different avenues to progress with. I'm a big planner. I like to believe in planning, but I also like to be very flexible with that plan. As a prime example, we were supposed to be running north to south of Malawi and also north to south of New Zealand, and have done a circumnavigation of Iceland. Now, all three of those record attempts and running trips that we were going to do didn't happen because of COVID. And so we did north to south of Italy, and we did a circumnavigation of Britain instead. And so that is a prime example of how I approach my running, but also my life. We plan things, but we also appreciated that if we have to change our plans and kind of move in a different direction and put things on pause, then we can do. But to answer the question more directly about van life or not van life for the future, the rough plan is, I'm 32 now. Am I? Yes, I am just 32. The plan is to be in the van for as long as we want to. Nikki, my girlfriend, and our dog Poppy, we're literally parked overlooking this view, and we live down here now. We're based down here. We spend the winters in the Alps, the summer in Cornwall, and then the rest of the time we are doing crazy trips. And so even if we did have a house somewhere to have as a home, somewhere to live, we wouldn't be there much. But having said that, the realities of children, schools, things like that, when that happens, we need to be a bit sensible with that. But I still, Nikki and I are both actively wanting to have children and our life as part of our work. And I'm a big believer in making your life and your work kind of merge. So there is no, I've got to get up and go to work. It's, you're already in it. And so we will probably move and live in another country. We will probably continue having children in the van up to a certain age until they need to go to school. And we will probably buy a property and have it as an asset, but probably not live in it. So I think that's a full answer of a bit of everything, but have a plan, but ultimately still live the life that we like now.
Yeah, and would you homeschool? Do you think you would go down that route, or because school would keep you generally in a pretty solid location for a decent amount of time, unless you wanted to move school to school? But
well, like I kind of alluded to at the beginning, I'm not very good at obeying the rules, and so flexing those rules as much as you can. I think the main thing about school that is important, in my opinion, for kids, I'm not a parent yet, is the social aspects rather than the education. The education, I think, doesn't even make up 5% of the, junior school. Definitely, you need some fundamentals, but after that, I think you can get a lot of your learning, and I've made that my opinion because I've met a handful, no more than 5, I would say, around the world on my travels. 5 young children or teenagers, anywhere from 5 to 12, for example. And these kids have been traveling the world with their family, and they are some of the most well-educated, well-socialized, brilliantly minded children. And I can have a conversation about politics in Japan, politics in Britain, the economy, the environment with these kids, and they fully understand it because they've lived it, they've breathed it, they speak multiple languages. And so I'm certainly very keen on our children having that kind of lifestyle. So if we have to take them out of school and homeschool them, then so be it. But we haven't really thought about that yet, because you need to have a child before you can think about school. But,
well, I've got 3. I've got 3 of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Daughter, boy. If they were sitting here right now, what would you say to them about life? And what I mean by that is I tell them it's okay to not do what everyone else is doing at school. I tell them it's okay to be different. Now, they're not necessarily things that I was taught. Yeah. And I think it's almost we get taught the opposite. I've got the corporate job, and Abby and I, we talk about it. We've fallen into life, babies, dogs, houses. I'm in that, but this podcast lets me into a world of speaking to people that I find incredible, inspiring. And I always do try to take it into my family life and my kids. What would you say? And what do you say in the schools? If my 3 kids are sitting here and they've not got me that's going to try and push them down that you've got to go to uni, you've got to get a degree. Yeah. That's not in this house.
I think as children, your one to-do list per day is to have fun. And then that sounds obvious, but don't put pressure on, don't plan. You know, if you want to go, I want to try and learn to play the guitar, and you pick up a guitar and then 2 weeks later you go, don't like it anymore, I want to play the drums, so be it. You know, as long as you can have the means to do that, then fine. But I think the big message that I speak to children about, and is how I hopefully will be as a parent, is that children are, by very definition, the next generation of our species. And so therefore we are evolving and improving all the time. And that by default means that our offspring are generally going to be a little bit better than us. They may not have all the experience and the wisdom of living on the planet for however long, but they do have the opportunity to forge their own path. And I think adults and the system, society, can shoebox kids into having their minds muffled and their abilities to do such great things stifled by, well, you need to go and study Shakespeare because that will get you some money. And I just don't agree with it. And I agree with the fundamentals of so much of standard education, but it gets to a point where getting out and seeing a country like Sierra Leone or like Nepal can give you so much more understanding. And I've actually started, I'm glad you've asked me about that, because we've actually started a business. A friend of mine and I have started this is something that you'll see coming in the next few years, but I speak in schools, but what I wanted to do was create a proper workshop whereby I can give kids a little bit of a a window into what I experienced around the world. And so we talk about topics like race, religion, wealth, everything from poverty and what that means. So I go through and talk about, if you have $1, if you live on $1 a day, which over 2 billion people in the world do, what does that mean? And then you put that into perspectives of, if you go and buy a £2.99 meal deal at Tesco, how lucky you are and what that means for you, and how many, everything from diet to nutrition. And so we've built this package. It's not finished yet, but I'm trying to build in an alternative curriculum to go alongside the standard school curriculum, just to give kids a little bit of an eye-opener into what the world can teach you if you don't have a chance to go and see it yourself.
I'm all ears. If I can help promote or do anything with that,
yeah,
I'd be delighted. If you're ever up this way, Edinburgh, need an event hosted or anything, I am there, because that is a world that my kids, I want them to experience. And I want their friends to experience, because they'll come with us and they'll see that other things are possible. So, no, Nick, that's fantastic. Nick, one last thing that I do like to know, when I've got someone that does the things that you do, who else out there, who's done something in this world that you thought, that's a great effort, I'm impressed by that. Like, if it's Nims Perja doing the 14 peaks or something, do you know what I mean? The Iron Cowboy, who's out there that you think that's an accomplishment?
Well, I am, without kind of meaning to, my kind of standards are very high, but they're not high in the sense of, you don't have to run around the moon for me to be impressed. I'm impressed by people's subtle changes that they've made in their lives. And so I'm fortunate to know a lot of people, and it gets me quite, I don't know, emotional thinking about it, because there's a lot of people that I've met through amazing other people. They've come to me and said, oh yeah, you should speak to this person, and that person said, oh, you should speak to that person. And I spoke to a few homeless people that have changed their lives and have got jobs and have started a family, and it's all because they've just taken the decision to do so. But when you ask me the question of who, can you name somebody that really inspires you, impresses you, there's a chap, and I can't remember his name because he's an Argentinian guy. I was running north to south of Italy at the time, and it was super early in the morning, and I stopped in a cafe to get some water or something. And there was this bike that was outside the cafe, and it had teddy bears on the front. It was a super long touring bike, really big bike, loads of panniers. And you could tell it's been through the wars. I thought, where is this from? I went in, and there was a guy with a helmet on and his cycling gear. And I said hello and asked him what he was doing. And he's from Argentina, and he has left his country and cycled, and he's been cycling around the world for 7 years. and he just gets by doing the odd fruit picking, doing some laboring, helping in a B&B. He just gets, and I just think that is the most remarkable way to live a life. Now, it's also potentially quite lonely at times. It's maybe not great for the pension or for the knees or for long term, but for what he's doing, hat off to you, to be able to do something like that. The likes of everybody from Nims, Anna McNuff. We've got a great friend of mine, Jeff Smith, who's an Everest summiter. Obviously the Iron Cowboy, Rich Roll, I'm absolutely fascinated by. But there's an awful lot of people out there that don't have celebrity names and probably don't even have more than 100 followers on Instagram, and they're the people that I've really been blown away by, because it's the effort that they've put in, and that's another message that I talk to about schools. It's not about really what you achieve, it's about the mind that you have and what you do with it.
Yeah, and Nick, I'm conscious of time, but I apologize, I've not brought up the 196 charity.
Oh yeah,
can you give us a bit on that, what the future is there, what you're doing with the charity? And also, I've heard the story, I know all about it, but Kev, the man that changed your life.
Yeah, I'll tell you about Kev first of all. So I guess my whole career, my whole life changed from banking, finance, corporate, pale, pasty indoor life to the opposite of that. Not so much money, hardly any money in reality, living out of a van, no sitting behind a desk, no working for 17 hours a day. And maybe I'm a little bit more tan now. So the tipping point of that, and there's a bigger story behind it, which is included in the book, is a guy called Kev, who I met out in the desert, Kevin Webber. I ran in the Sahara Desert, the Marathon des Sables, and he was my tent mate. And he had, very sadly, terminal prostate cancer. And I got chatting to him, and all of a sudden I'm out, 50 degrees in the middle of the Sahara, chatting to a guy who's telling me he's going to only live for 2 years. And it was the tipping point of lots of things that happened in my life where I thought I really need to make a change and really do something. And I thought I want to raise some money for Prostate Cancer UK, the main charity in the UK that supports the fight against prostate cancer. And I want to do something for Kev, and I want to listen to what he was saying to me. He was saying, don't wait for a diagnosis. Don't wait for something to happen in your life to make a change, because, and I can tell you this for a fact, everybody that I have met that has had prostate cancer or has had a life-changing situation in their world, they have all said to me, I wish I'd made a change earlier. And so I'm just fortunate that I've had a chat with Kev, and he basically just gave me the handbook of, don't mess your life up, don't waste your life, just go and do what you want to do. And so I met him, and I then dreamt up running around the world, and I suppose the rest we've talked about. And running the world then leads me nicely onto the 196 Foundation, because I then learned that, like we've alluded to on this call, is that we're very privileged, and I had no idea. I knew we were lucky, and my dad used to always say to me, you don't know how lucky you are, and I'm sure lots of dads say that, but we don't know how lucky we are. And when I ran around the world, it was really the opportunity to make a big difference, and I wanted to be able to get to my deathbed when I'm hopefully very old and having done some good to the planet. I didn't want to just fade and not have done something good. So we set this charity up, and it was a very specific charity with a very specific way of working, which is to only ask for tiny amounts of money and to help multiple causes all over the world. So the charity is called the 196 Foundation. We ask for £1.96 per month from individuals around the world. You can't donate any more. You can't donate any less. It's £1.96 per month for 1 month if you want, or as many months as you want. Cancel at any time. It's an entirely non-profit, nobody is paid. And so all of those £1.96s get into a pot, and every year we then add all of that money up, and then very importantly, we ask every single donor to vote on who we help. And so we present 3 potential options, 3 potential projects. It could be helping somebody that you live next door to buy an expensive wheelchair if they need an expensive wheelchair. If we need to build an orphanage in Haiti or Kenya, if we need to build a school somewhere, if we want to set up a disabled boxing gym in, I don't know, Hackney. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be anywhere, anything. But we present 3 options, and then the donors vote on who we help, and it's the winner of that vote that we then go and help, and we deliver one project per year with the money that we have in the pot, and we deliver a very transparent impact study on who we've helped, how we've helped them, and what the impact on the 17 global goals, which is the kind of the general charity network. So it took me 3 years to get the charity off the ground, and now the chairman of the charity is another guy called Nick, who I happened to meet during Running the World, who was in Guatemala, and is a very fundamental part of the foundation as well. So I'm very proud of it, and I'm very pleased. We've got nearly 1,000 donors now, but my goal over my lifetime is to hopefully get hold of at least 1% of the British public, just the British public, just our little island, just 1% of the British public in my lifetime. And what that will mean is we will have enough money to make huge changes around the world and make huge impacts to, it could literally be somebody next door that needs the help. But I just think some people need a little bit of a leg up, and they don't need a big charity to spend lots of money. We run the charity for about £1,000 a year, and that money comes out of my own pocket. We don't use any of the donations for that. I pay for that myself, or we ask a third party sponsor to provide that £1,000, and all of the money that's donated from individuals goes towards the cause. So if you can afford £1.96 a month, then it's on the website, the196foundation.com.
Fantastic, Nick. Congratulations, and well done for creating that, but for everything you've achieved. And I can't wait. I don't want you to tell me because it's probably all on the wraps, but whatever comes next, I can only imagine it will be exceptional. It will be exceptional, a little bit nuts, and I hope your body gets you get it to the place you need it to be, that you're eating, get that weight back on.
Thank you very much, mate. No, it's been a real pleasure to chat with you, and we'll definitely have to meet up and chat about the school's workshops, and maybe your kids can have an input in that. But yeah, it'd be really great to chat to you about it.
I'd love that. Nick, brilliant. All the best. Catch you soon.
Cheers, mate. Take care.